Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something pretty fundamental, really, for all of us. The self, or what most people call the ego.
Mm-hmm.
Our thinking today comes from this really interesting chat between Thili Min Niet, the spiritual teacher, and Thuy Min from Vietcetera's Bon Thon series.
Right.
And look, you're probably here because you want to get your head around these big ideas, but, without getting totally lost.
Yeah, quickly but thoroughly.
Exactly. So that's what this deep dive aims for, kind of a shortcut to understanding. We've basically boiled down their discussion, working from a YouTube transcript here, to pull out the key nuggets.
Okay, so the mission is to really unpack this whole ego thing. We'll start with what it actually is, according to the source.
Yeah, define it first.
Then look at how it develops and we clear up some common misconceptions.
Good idea.
And see how it, shows up in our lives, our relationships, and then maybe how to build a healthier relationship with it.
Sounds like a plan. So let's dive in. What's the basic definition they start with?
Well, it begins really fundamentally, almost like a survival thing.
Okay.
An inherent sense of self. That instinct saying, this is me, this is mine, I need this to, well, exist. That basic I.
Got it. Like a starting point.
Exactly, like a toddler grabbing a toy, mine. That's the ego just starting out. But it doesn't just stay there with our bodies or toys, does it?
No, it definitely grows from there.
Right. It expands from just needing food and shelter or recognizing family to wanting broader things.
Like what sort of things?
Like recognition, love, our place in the social pecking order,
Mm.
We start defining ourselves by what we achieve, how people see us, the feedback we get.
Okay, and I think that's where a lot of us jump to the negative, right? Like, he's got such a big ego.
Yeah, it often has that negative spin.
But this conversation, it sounds like it offered a bit more nuance.
It did, yeah. While we definitely connect ego with arrogance or being self-absorbed, the source also highlights the, let's say, positive drivers.
Such as?
Ambition, that push to achieve things, even just the basic desire to be happy or to help others. Interestingly, even wanting inner peace, that's still the ego seeking something for itself.
Huh. So it's not just good or bad.
Not at all. It's much more layered. Understanding it is really about seeing all these different facets and how they, drive us.
Okay. So how does this sense of self actually get built? The chat mentioned early childhood, feeling like the center of the world.
Yes, exactly. It points out that it's pretty natural for kids to see themselves as the main character in their universe.
Especially if they get a lot of praise early on.
For being cute or smart or good at something. That positive feedback can easily lead a child to think, wow, I must be really special.
But is that feeling of being special a bad thing when you're developing?
Not necessarily, according to the source. It actually suggests that feeling, even if it's a bit inflated maybe, is important early on.
How so?
It helps build that basic self-confidence, a sense of worth. It's like a foundation.
Okay, a foundation. But how does it get more defined as we grow up?
A big part is just realizing you are an individual. Your unique DNA, the specific things that happen to you.
Even within the same family, right?
Absolutely. Siblings have different personalities, different experiences. It leads to that core feeling, I am a separate person. It's like, I have the right to feel that way.
And so much adds to that uniqueness.
Totally. Think about school. Same classes, same teachers, but we all learn and remember different things. Our emotional growth, our thinking, it's all personal. And then there's that, filter of our own experiences that shapes our choices later.
Like career, friends, what we value.
Exactly. It's like we're running on our own internal software.
That's a good way to put it. And that real push for independence, that often kicks in during the teen years, right? Around 18, 20.
Oh, definitely. That
Yeah.
strong need to carve out your own identity, to feel like you're not just, your parents' kid anymore.
Yeah, wanting to explore your own potential.
And when we manage to do things on our own, get recognition for it, that just reinforces the ego further.
That feeling of, I did this.
Exactly. This is me.
So the ego gets built up through all these layers, experiences, achievements, validation. But then life happens. Challenges, failures, pain. How does that affect it?
Well, those tough times are actually pretty crucial for growth. They often force us to realize we can't do it all alone.
That we need other people.
Precisely. And that's often where the ego starts to, let's say, soften up a bit. To keep people close, the important relationships, you have to learn to compromise.
And to listen.
Yeah, really listen. Develop empathy, tolerance. You can't just bulldoze through if you want to keep people around.
So the ego kind of learns to share the space.
You could say that. You start seeing the value in considering others' viewpoints. The source mentions Ike Yantam winning hearts, basically.
Building positive
Right.
connections.
You realize you need to dial back the arrogance, maybe,
Yeah.
foster a bit more harmony to get support to just, well, survive and thrive in society.
So even though we feel like separate individuals, we're not really built for total isolation.
Not at all. The source uses that take me home idea. After striving for independence, you realize how much family and real connection actually matter. It makes you think, like the source asks, if everyone you knew disappeared, what would your reason to live be?
Wow. Yeah, that really drives home the interdependence.
It does. And it's not just philosophy. They even mention the science bit, how even tiny particles don't exist alone, they interact. There are laws governing connection.
That's a cool parallel. From atoms to us.
It is. And they give examples we can relate to. Dewey Min and her mom, her child, her colleagues, even her audience.
How a podcast can impact people.
Yeah, a shared idea, a piece of advice. It can shift things for someone, change their life even. And of course, our connection to nature.
Right, the basics. Air, water.
Sun, absolutely. They mention the Alaskan people's respect for their food.
The idea that you are what you eat.
Exactly, but deeper. Extending the self beyond just the body. And that analogy of a flame needing oxygen.
It shows things aren't just in here or out there.
Precisely. It's all connected. We're not really separate islands. We're in this web, people, nature, even our thoughts. A kind thought can ripple outwards.
So the ego starts as me, but understanding grows to see the we. Interesting. Now, the conversation also gets into the challenges, right? And how the ego might transform.
Yes, it talks about that central ego stage in early childhood, say birth to 6.
Where the kid thinks the universe revolves around them.
Pretty much, yeah. Everything's for them. And that's seen as, well, necessary for a vulnerable child. It provides security, nurturing.
But we're supposed to grow out of that perspective. Those protective layers need to change.
Right. And while good experiences build us up, the ego also bumps into pain, struggle. The source talks about the bleeding pain when the ego gets hurt.
Especially if it's attached to, like, talent or achievements.
That seems to be the idea. The more you cling to being talented or needing praise, the harder it is to let go of those illusions when things go wrong. The expert speaker actually shared something personal about this, having two sides. One, helpful, likable, but another that felt, well, superior.
Oh, wow.
Which made deep connections and teamwork difficult.
That's very candid. What caused a shift?
A major life event, losing parents. That experience just sort of broke the ego, as they put it.
A huge shock.
Yeah. It led to realizing that personal talents felt pretty meaningless in the face of that kind of loss. The focus shifted.
To what?
To wanting to be ordinary, appreciate simple things, connect authentically.
We're stripping away the non-essential.
Exactly. And then consciously trying to rebuild the ego, but this time on different foundations.
Kindness.
Sincerity, connection, contributing, understanding that your abilities aren't just yours. They come from nature, family, society.
There was that image, too, contrasting comfort with someone else's hardship.
Yes, the tea farmer in the rain. Powerful image. It sparks that sense of interconnectedness, gratitude.
And the idea that giving is really returning.
Recognizing what you've received from the world.
Yeah.
It shifts from a self-focused view to something broader.
More oriented towards others.
Right. This commitment to giving back, repaying the gifts, even seeing past suffering as fuel for growth. And importantly, even a big ego phase might come before a deeper understanding and a bigger capacity to contribute once it softens.
So the ego doesn't vanish, it just integrates differently, finds happiness in helping.
That's the idea. Which brings us to finding balance, right? Something most of us grapple with, feeling confident one minute, totally insecure the next.
Definitely.
And the conversation acknowledges this is ongoing. Even people deep into spiritual practice still feel negative emotions.
So what's the key then?
Awareness. Observing those feelings without judging them. Being the camera of your mind, as they say.
So not suppressing feelings, but just watching them.
Exactly. Meditation in this sense is just noticing thoughts, feelings, without getting swept away. And importantly, having an ego isn't the opposite of being aware.
Even the expert acknowledged still having one.
Yeah, getting annoyed sometimes, having preferences.
Yeah.
It's normal. It's part of interacting with the world.
I like that analogy they use, the 100-kilogram German Shepherd ego that you gradually train down to a healthier 30 kilograms.
Yeah, it's memorable. It shows you still need some ego to function, to engage, The goal isn't zero ego,
Mhm.
probably impossible anyway, but a healthier relationship with it.
Right.
Even the motivation to share knowledge, like in this conversation, comes from connection, wanting to help, not just ego.
Okay, so what does that truly healthy state look like? They mentioned superego versus non-ego.
Yeah, the superego is described as being like nature, selfless, supportive, nourishing others.
Mm.
And non-ego isn't about rejecting love or chances to do good.
False humility is still ego, right?
Exactly. A non-ego speed is more about being authentic, kind, approachable, like a good friend, or nature itself.
So how do you cultivate that?
It involves ongoing self-reflection. The expert mentioned checking in daily. How was my attitude towards others? Was I sincere? Respectful?
And practices like Vipassana meditation help.
Yes, but not to crush the ego. More to understand its roots, the misunderstandings, the wrong ideas feeding it, observing life clearly, gaining wisdom that naturally softens the ego.
It connects to those ideas of fuk and fuk, merit and virtue.
Right. Selfless contribution builds merit. A kinder ego builds virtue. Together, they bring you more into alignment with how things work.
They even brought in the butterfly effect.
To show how small intentions, if aligned with bigger forces, can have huge outcomes. Big achievements need collective effort, being ready for the moment.
The universe providing support when you're ready to serve.
That was the insight, yeah. Getting past ego-driven fears is key to catching that wave.
This whole conversation makes you think about time, too. How easily it slips away, maybe on things that don't feel meaningful.
It does touch on that.
Yeah.
And the question of time management. The expert shared that focusing on inner growth, less on material stuff, actually freed up time for contributing.
Like the artist who never retires because the work is their life.
Exactly. Living fully now
Mm.
and finding your own mission, whether it's internal with close people or broader,
And seeing challenges not just as roadblocks.
but maybe as messages, prompts to pause, reflect, adjust your path. And that regular check-in on your ego, kind or unkind, big or small, helps avoid regrets.
The final advice was about cultivating your inner self, right?
Yes, put energy into that positive inner state because that energy resonates outwards. Focus on creating good energy now.
And let the universe worry about the rest.
Beautifully put. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive on the ego. It's definitely complex stuff.
It really is. Even for us, talking through these abstract ideas takes focus. A huge thanks to Tuckerman Net for the insights and Thuimin for facilitating that original talk.
Absolutely. And thank you, our listener, for coming along. We really hope this helped untangle things a bit, helped you maybe become better friends with yourself.
It's always a team effort putting these together, too, so thanks to everyone behind the scenes.
Indeed. We wish you the very best as you continue figuring things out on your own journey.